Wolves look set to have yet another outgoing this summer. Goncalo Guedes looks set to move to Real Sociedad. So in this video we're going to be speaking a bit about Goncalo Guedes as a player, also a bit about how it affects Wolves with regards to PSR and their current financial situation. So let's get straight into this one. Now, as you can see last night, journalist Matteo Moretto confirmed that Wolves and Real Sociedad have been in advanced talks for the transfer of Goncalo Guedes, and in the coming hours, contacts will be held between the parties to see if the transaction can go ahead. Now, as you can see here as well, he later confirmed that it will be a permanent deal. Now, this is extremely interesting for a few reasons. Now, I've seen a hell of a lot of Valencia fans in the comments ideally wanting to get him back to that club. And, you know, he had a really good relationship with Valencia, obviously had a really successful time at Valencia as well. So I'm very surprised that that's not opened up as an option, really. However, I do think, with regards to Real Sociedad, in terms of a move for Guedes' career, I think it would be an absolutely brilliant move. Obviously, they have lost a lot of key players over the years, especially in the last few years, with the likes of Mikel Merino, Martin Zubimendi, for example. But I do think he could go there and really nail down a spot. Obviously, they've also lost key players across the past, really, when you look at the likes of Antoine Griezmann or you look at the likes of Alexander Sorloth. There's been key players that have left Real Sociedad, but I do think it would be a really good environment for Guedes as a player, to be quite honest. So we're going to speak a little bit more about the PSR situation and what it means for Wolves moving forward financially. Now, PSR makes this an extremely interesting deal. Now, at the minute, as it stands, Goncalo Guedes' book value is around £11 million. So, ideally, Wolves will eventually be able to make a profit out of this. So, in terms of PSR, Guedes is believed to be on around 4.6 million per year. I think it's 90 grand a week. Obviously, if you times that by 52, it works out at 4.6 million. Now, that is a massive saving towards PSR with regards to salary, because he has took up a massive chunk of wages considering he's been there for a while. And also, you have to consider the fact that also, you know, some of the loans will have paid a percentage of his wage, but not all of them. And I think that's really interesting. Now, how much do I think Wolves will get for Guedes? I think they'll probably get somewhere in the region from probably 10 to 12, maybe 10 to 14, 15 with add-ons. But I think 10 to 12 is around the range that they'll probably be looking to get rid of him for. I wouldn't have thought they'll get rid of him for less than that, personally. But even if Wolves were to get rid of him for around £7 million and save the £4.6 million wages, you know, ultimately his book value is currently 11 million. That would be 11.6 million. So actually, they're slightly better off in terms of on the books and how it looks from a PSR perspective. They'll be around £600,000 better off, because book value is essentially determined by how much of the wages on the percentage of their contract you've paid. So, say for example, Guedes would have been there, you know, around 5 years. Let's just say that as an example. It wasn't, but let's just say 5 years. Say Wolves have paid 3 years of them wages now, and he's still got 2 years remaining left of those wages. Essentially, that value of the wages comes off the overall market value of him, and that makes his book value out to be 11 million. So that is basically how book value works. I know I probably haven't explained that in the best way, or probably explain that in the most convoluted way, to be honest, but I'm sure if you sort of don't understand football finances, I'm sure you can go and check it out and have a look at that in probably a more in-depth way of explaining it, but I just wanted to explain it in layman's terms, really. And I do think that makes it for a really interesting deal, because like I say, I do think Wolves could arguably make a slight profit in terms of PSR and how it looks on the books. Obviously they have lost a lot, but in terms of PSR it doesn't have that much of an impact whatsoever and actually benefits them in some way. So that's another thing that I think is really interesting to look at when speaking about Goncalo Guedes. Now, I think when we speak about Goncalo Guedes for £27.5 million, coming off the back of really good seasons in La Liga for Valencia, and actually, you know, starting his career a lot at PSG as well and playing around there, I do think everyone expected a hell of a lot more from Goncalo Guedes, and ever since he really landed at Wolves, his attitude has been, in my opinion, miles off it a majority of the time. Now, he has looked happy in pre-season and stuff like that, but I think that's a bit of a PR thing for the club personally and from the club, because a lot of the fans aren't really sold on Goncalo Guedes and his attitude towards the club, in my personal opinion anyway. That's how I view it. Now, since he's been at Wolves, obviously he's been loaned out back to Benfica, been loaned out to Villarreal as well, and has only made 51 appearances for Wolves since signing for them. And as you can see there, 13 goal contributions in 51 games. It's not the most awful record in the world, but equally, you know, for £27.5 million, a big outlay for a player that, to be honest, you know, was highly touted, and to be fair, he should have gone to Wolves probably 18 months before that. You know, he was heavily linked to him for a long time, and I think he went too late and just generally didn't want to be there, and it just never really worked, and it almost felt like he was trying to get another, you know, a payday really. But equally, you know, I think it will be a shame to see him go because I do think he has quality and I do think he will thrive back in La Liga. But I do think, as a club, I think it makes absolute sense for Wolves to move on the assets like Goncalo Guedes, potentially Hwang Hee-chan, Fabio Silva. All those three players are the most valuable assets in terms of the forward line at the club. Obviously, Sasa Kalajdzic's market value has massively dropped because of his injuries, but I do think them three are the most likely to move on out of the four of them. I think Sasa could go on loan as well, but I think it's really interesting. I want to know what you all think, Wolves fans, as well, because I know Goncalo Guedes, it does divide opinions. Some people want to keep him, see him given a chance, but I think it's the right time to cut ties personally. Now, if you did enjoy this video, I'd really appreciate it if you would like the video and subscribe to the channel because it really helps and we're absolutely flying at the moment and I'm loving seeing so many of you enjoying the content. Also, check out my podcast I did yesterday with Dave. It is a long watch, it's only 40 minutes, but it's one of them you can put on in the background while you're at work or something, and I'm sure you will enjoy it. It's really, really insightful chat and something that I really enjoyed doing, and hopefully, if you enjoy it, let me know if you want to see more. I'll put my social links to Twitter, TikTok, and all that sort of stuff in the description as well. So if you want to share my videos on Twitter, I interact with a lot of you Wolves fans on Twitter. So if you want to share it over there, and I'll interact with you over there too. But very much sort of appreciate all of your support recently. It's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you all for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.